One,
29th. So
I think
two.
that was 2004, if I remember right.
Okay.
And the reason I attended that reunion, of course, was to see if I could help out. But it was my brother's 40th, so anyway, we were all back there for that, and it all worked out. So,
Right
but
on.
it was a good time, with some of the other classmates. I can't remember who else was there, but I all I remember is we had a good time serving together.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I've got J. Kimo Sistrunk on with me. And where are you now?
I'm in, I live between Charlotte and Greensboro, North Carolina, in a
North
place called
Carolina. Okay.
Lexington, North Carolina.
So let's get our jumping off point. What grade did you start Kamehameha?
I started in ninth grade.
Oh,
It's,
surprising. I never realized there were that many, but I think I've already talked to like five who started in ninth grade. So,
yeah.
and where did you do kindergarten to eight?
Oh, wow. We lived I was raised in Kaneohe. And so I attended an elementary school there, I think till second grade. And then my parents moved to town and we bought a home next to Kapalama Heights on Aleva Heights. So
Oh,
I wasn't far from school.
oh,
And so anyway, I went to school in town for a few years. Went to my elementary school, which is down below Aleva Heights and going towards Nuuanu.
yeah.
And then after that, I went to Kwananakoa Middle School, intermediate
Yeah.
school, and had to go to Central Intermediate for 1 year. That was pretty rough. And then I was grateful that I was able to get into Kamehameha after that. It's probably a little known fact. I'm the youngest of four siblings, and my previous three siblings all graduated from Kamehameha or attended Kamehameha.
Oh,
So,
legacy.
yeah, so the pressure was on, right? So for me to get in, and so my sister, my parents, it was almost like we had two separate families. It was we were all have the same parents, but I have an oldest sister that's 13 years older than I am, that graduated in 61. And then I had a brother that graduated in 64. And then a sister just older than I am graduated in 73, than myself in 75.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I can see.
Yeah.
I have a half sister who's 10 years younger. And until I was probably mid 30s, I knew nothing about her, because there's nothing to talk about. I'm 12, she's two.
Yeah.
I'm 20, she's 10,
Yeah. They were changing my diapers. So yeah.
Okay. So we get through, we graduate. What's your next move, Kimo?
After that, I went to a year of school at BYU, Hawaii.
Okay.
Um, and then, as some of your previous callers or interviewers, I attended a 2 year mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And then following that, I went back to school for 2 years.
Now, where did you go on your mission?
And that's interesting because as many of you know, the church is based in Salt Lake City, Utah, or they sent me to Utah on a mission. So and it had just opened. It was brand new. In fact, I was the first missionary from Hawaii to be in that mission. And so anyway, there's been a lot of missionaries since then, and that mission has really grown because there's a lot of influx of people that are not members of our church that have moved to Salt Lake City area.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, a couple days ago, I was talking to Ray Fujikawa. You remember him?
Oh yeah, you bet. I watched that interview. That was interesting.
And I
Yeah.
like how he says people are going to Japan and Brazil, and
Yeah.
he gets to go to Kentucky,
Kentucky. Yeah.
and you get to go to Utah.
Yeah. But like as he mentioned, it was like a foreign mission because I never experienced winter before. And I get sent out there in November, and the first thing I buy is a pair of thermal underwear. And I just wore those things out. I mean, I was cold all the time. In fact, I got pretty sick on the onset, and but after that, I got acclimated and I was okay.
Yeah.
Um, my first missionary companion was from Minnesota, so he was taking clothes off. I was putting clothes on, you know. So
Yeah, it's freaky. I got here December of '09, middle of a blizzard. I left Hawaii 83, 84 degrees. I get here, it's like 17 below. And the snow is completely burying the stop sign. You get to an intersection, you don't even know if it's a two-way stop, four-way stop, or anybody stop, you know.
yeah,
It was I had scary moments my first year and some
I'm
cold
sure.
ones too, very cold ones.
Challenging in driving as well. Yeah,
Yeah,
on compact
definitely.
snow and ice. That's challenging. Yeah.
So after your mission, you said you did what?
So I went back to school for 2 years. Actually, just 1 year. I went to BYU Provo, met my wife, and I didn't finish. I started working after that, and we were married, and then we had 3 children. So I have a son and 2 daughters, and we they live in North Carolina. My wife, now previous wife, Ruth, is also from North Carolina, and that's how we ended up out here. We didn't start in North Carolina. I've been here 30 years, but previous to that, we lived all over the place. We lived in out west. We lived in Washington State. We lived in Utah for a time. We even lived before we started, or after our first child was born. I had an opportunity to go to Australia, so I lived there for a year and started we had a startup company and we brought a concept there, building pool enclosures, screen pool enclosures like you see in Florida. So we took that concept to Florida and to Australia and in the Sydney area and the Queensland area and started that. Um,
Oh,
but my wife at the time, Ruth, really missed the States and she didn't want to live there so any longer. So we packed up and came back penniless and had like 6 suitcases. That was it. And so we pretty much started all over again. We didn't have a whole lot to start with, but anyway, it was a great experience. And so we came back and I back to Washington State, worked there for a while, and then ended up in North Carolina. Well, actually, we moved to Utah, lived there for about 7 years, and pretty much my career was around marketing. So um, I got involved in computer leasing for some time, and that's what brought us to Utah. I started in Redmond, Washington, and at that time, that's when Microsoft was getting kicked off, and in the early '80s. And so anyway, we um, kind of rode that wave and got involved in computer leasing and opened a branch in Salt Lake City, Utah. And after about, as I mentioned, I think 7, 8 years there, um, my wife Ruth convinced me to move to North Carolina. So that's how we ended up here.
because that's where she was from.
That's where she was from. She wanted to move back home. So anyway, we were married for 27 years, and unfortunately, um, things didn't work out. And a couple years later, I remarried, and I'm married to Kathleen now. We've been married going on 18 years, and
Wow. Okay.
so she has 6 children, and I had 3. So kind of like the Brady Bunch. We have a blended family of 9, and we have 18 grandchildren and 1 great granddaughter.
You guys with all the double-digit grandchildren, man. The
They
only
keep,
thing I somehow keep up with is I already have two great grands, so but
yeah,
only 9 grandchildren. So
well, that's okay. I mean, I don't think it's quantity. I mean, it's just nice having them, and
yeah.
spending time with them.
Absolutely. So distance wise, how far away are your kids? I don't know how big the state of North Carolina is.
North Carolina is pretty large, but furthest one is 2 hours from us.
Oh,
Not even 2 hours. Yeah.
yeah.
And then I have two that are like less than a half hour down the road. So they're all relatively close. And and Kathleen has one son that lives near us as well. And then all the rest live either we have a son in Key West, and we have a son in Detroit, Michigan, and then we have the rest of them are in Utah. So most of the grandchildren on Kathleen's side are in Utah, live there. So we she pretty much burns up the air miles, going back and forth, and I join her too on occasion. I have a sister, my oldest sister lives in Utah, and my mother lived there as well. She passed away year before last. She was 101. So
Wow, amazing.
we're grateful to have her with us as long as she lived, was able to live. She was an awesome woman. And that's where I get the Hawaiian side. So she was a Kanahele. And my my father, obviously Sistrunk, no Hawaiian at all, just Saw Valley. Um, so anyway, and interesting enough, he was born and raised in North Carolina as well. It was just coincidence that I ended up back here.
Huh.
Yeah,
Was your dad military?
he was, and that's how he ended up meeting my mother in Hawaii. He um, he was Army, and then right after he ended his stint with the Army, he started working at Hickam Air Force Base as a civilian, and then Pearl Harbor broke out. So, and that's when he and my mother met, because my mother also had a job at Hickam, and that's how they connected.
All right. Huh. So you are still part-time working, full-time working?
I'm trying to retire. I'm a um, I'm a part owner in a land development company. So what we do is for the past 13 years, a good friend of mine, we partnered together and we formed this company where we take raw land and we develop it, making it suitable to build on. So commercial or residential. Primarily, we've been doing a lot of commercial subdevelopments. So we do the clearing, we do the grading, we put all the wet utilities in the ground, the storm drain, the sewer, the water, and then we put the curb and gutter in and put the roadways in. So when we're done, they're ready to start digging foundations.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you concentrate on the North Carolina area or do you go
Yeah,
beyond?
primarily the Charlotte metro area. That's a high growth area here in North Carolina, and that's where we have found most of our work during the past 13 years. Um, it has slowed down a little bit, and we're going through some restructuring ourselves, but it's there's still a good promise, of work here. But I'm POW, I'm 67 and a half years old, and I didn't know if I should share this, but another reason I'm wanting to retire is a year ago I started having some night sweats, and I started having high fevers. What I mean by high fevers, in excess of 101 degrees. And I after this started happening, I went to my general practitioner. He was an internist, and he examined me and he said, I don't know what's going on. He says, but we'll do some tests and so forth. And anyway, he couldn't figure it out, sent me to an infectious disease control doctor, and she looked at me and did some blood work and so forth, and couldn't figure out. They thought I had Lyme disease or something like that. But anyway, that didn't prove conclusive. And so They sent me to an autoimmune specialist to see if I had any autoimmune type disease, and that didn't come out with anything. And then I went to a gastroenterologist and had a colonoscopy done, and in thinking I had colon cancer. And anyway, nothing came back conclusively there. The scan was clear. So anyway, we were frustrated at that point. It was almost 2 months into this. And Kathleen says, look, I'm going to get a hold of the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. And let me see if we can get in there. And she says, I'm sure they'll be able to figure this out. Well, after her persistence in calling them, and I guess they got tired of her calling them, she, excuse me, she was able to get through and get me an appointment. And 10 days later, after her initial contact, we headed up to Rochester. And in about a week's time, they figured out what I had. And I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, which is a rare blood cancer. So anyway, that was in end of June. And then they said, look, you need to go back to North Carolina and find a good oncologist. We can give you some recommendations. And they did. And so I found a good oncologist, and he started treating me in the end of August of last year. And anyway, it's been quite a journey. So I went under a series of infusions and cancer treatments, and I had a stem cell. I went through a stem cell harvest and a stem cell transplant 2 months ago, and consequently, I lost some of my hair. So this isn't by design, but uh, but anyway, I think it's coming back. I feel a lot of peach fuzz now. So, but um, thank the Lord after countless prayers said on our behalf, and the faith of many good friends and family. I'm now in what they classify as deep remission. And so my oncologist told me just a few days ago that likely I won't have any major reoccurrence for 5+ years. Multiple myeloma is not curable. There's no cure for it at this time, but it's treatable. And so fortunately, they caught it at a stage where they could treat it and get it to the point where to put me into deep remission. And
Well, hallelujah for that part.
yes, yes, for sure. So this is this has pretty much rocked our world for the last year, and it's caused me to pause and think of what to do next. And I don't think I want to spend what remaining years I have working. So we're looking at some options. One of them is serving a church mission together, my wife and I, and doing other things, humanitarian type work, getting involved in doing some giving back to society. So anyway, um, we're that kind of brings you up to speed of where I'm at currently. And
Well, Rochester is about 2 hours due east of me.
okay,
And I was back there in 2015. I had picked up I hurt my knee real bad back in 81. And then in 2015, I woke up one day and it wouldn't support any weight. Went in the doctor. And I guess when you have hardware in your body, infections target that area. So I picked up some infection in my knee that they said had I come in maybe a week later, they wouldn't have been able to stop it and I would have probably lost the leg. So I went to Rochester Mayo and just incredible experience. I mean, I was trying to get to, I think, a blood test appointment or something. So I stopped someone who looked like an employee in the hallway and they walked me 3 floors to where I was going. And that person was a doctor. not like support staff. So it's just the overall atmosphere and how well they do things and their ability to get results, like in your case.
You know that you're so right. They have everything under one roof, you know. I mean, there's multiple buildings, but basically everything's under one roof. I know when I got in to see a hematologist, um, right away, yeah, after looking at my blood work and so forth, he said, "Look, you need to go in for a bone marrow biopsy." And he says, do you have some availability this afternoon? And if this was some other facility, back here in North Carolina, it would be weeks out, right? Typically. And so, but there, everything just happens like that. So that's how come they're able to troubleshoot and to figure things out, pretty rapidly because they have they have all these resources available to them.
When,
Um,
I think human nature, the more time you give information or data to sit without being looked at and attended, lines of communication start getting lost. People lose momentum, and then they sometimes have to start from scratch because they don't remember where they started from. But if you're doing it same day, I mean, they know I did this. Okay, then I'm gonna do this, and they're boom, boom, right there.
yeah, and I don't mean to dwell on this, but just real quick, when this hematologist found out that conclusively I had multiple myeloma, he had a feeling that I had. Um, what kind of threw everybody off is having a night sweats and having high fevers, what they call FUO, fever unknown origin. Um, that's not typical of multiple myeloma. That's not a symptom, usually of multiple myeloma. It was for me. That's how it manifested itself. But so anyway, but when he saw my results, he pretty much knew before I had my bone marrow biopsy of what I had, just from the blood work. And and that's the only way they can, because it's a bone marrow disease, that's the only way they can conclusively tell where you're at. I've had 4 bone marrow biopsies along the way just so that they can monitor me and determine. And that's how they're able to find out that um, I was in deep remission because the myeloma count in my bone marrow was so minimal. And so they knew that they got most of it, with the stem cell transplant that I had. And I
Yeah.
had a bout of strong chemo prior to that. That's how come I lost all my hair. So, but after the chemotherapy and the stem cell transplant, everything went according to plan. It started building my system back up. Had good white blood cells built back into my bone marrow, and so consequently, that's how come I'm in the stage I'm in right now. So yeah, it's a tremendous blessing. Mayo Clinic is a phenomenal facility. And when the hematologist got the uh, my bone marrow results back, he called us up and said, "Look, can you meet me in my office?" And we said, "Sure." So he said, "Give me about 30 minutes." Come to find out, he was on vacation. He came off of vacation, put on his shirt and tie, and came to his office to tell us the news. He didn't want to tell us on the phone. That's the caliber of doctors that they have there. So so impressive.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
he knew that this is a life-changing event, right? So, and he knew how important it was to tell us personally, and we're so grateful that he was able to do that.
wow. Yeah, it's amazing. You just have to, and we all are at a stage now where we don't know what's coming up. I think I started collecting my SSI at like 63. Co-workers and people were telling me, wait till you're 70 because your check's going to be bigger. And I'm going, I could be in a wheelchair or not around, or I mean, I'm not waiting. I'll make the check bigger by keep working, you know.
Yeah, I'm starting to
So
rethink that now.
what's
So
that?
I'm starting to rethink that now, because I haven't started drawing yet, but I think I am going to start drawing, especially too, because, this may limit my life expectancy, so it's better to start, like you said, cashing in on it.
Yeah. And then, there's a little part of me that fears because, other people have been drawing out of those funds for different government purposes. And so it might not be there, you
Yeah,
know, to keep continuing to take from. So
sure.
now we go back to before you had your physical challenges. Are you much of a traveler? Have you and your wife,
Yeah, I mean,
recreationally gone out and
especially Kathleen, she's a big traveler. I mean, she loves, I mean, 2 years ago, we did a big Europe trip. We went to Spain, Italy. We went up to um, you got to excuse me too, and I blame it on the chemo, but my thought process is a little bit slower. So, but anyway,
let's blame
um,
it on the fact that you're 67 and a half.
that too. Yeah, you compound all that together, that's what you get. So, so we went up to uh, we spent a lot of time in Switzerland, and that's where my ancestry is from. My ancestors are from Switzerland. And so that was very interesting to spend time there. It's a beautiful country. If you haven't been, I mean, I would highly recommend it. Absolutely beautiful.
Do you have any facts about your lineage so that you could have looked around and maybe tried to track,
Yeah,
actual locations and
I did that for sure while I was there. I took that opportunity to go to a little town called Humlichen, which is a farming community in Switzerland, near Bern, Switzerland, which is a big city. And so, uh, there's no Sistrunks around there anymore, but it was just kind of neat to kind of walk the same areas that they may have walked, back in the day. They migrated in the 1700s to the US, and that's how we got here, and or my ancestors got here from Switzerland. So
wow.
so anyway, so that was cool. That was great to see that the Switzerland is an extremely clean country. I mean, everybody takes pride of their yards and the streets and sidewalks and so forth. Um, and they just have some beautiful parks and sceneries. I mean, it was a really great experience. So we spent time there, and then we took a river cruise up the Rhine River, and that was fascinating. Went to Amsterdam, and then we came back to Switzerland, and then we took a train. In fact, we caught trains from and stopped along the way to see if I can pull it up to various countries on our way from Italy to Switzerland, and anyway, it was that was a cool way of doing it. I've I tell you, your age definitely shows when you do something like that because it getting on and off trains, maybe staying in one city for a night or a couple nights, and then getting back on a train again. Um, it was a cool way of seeing the country, and being able to make several stops along the way. On a plane, that would be somewhat difficult.
Yeah.
So, but on a train, you can do that a lot easier. One town, I forget where we were at. I think we were in let's see here.
So you
Yeah.
guys made this trip in 23? Is that
We didn't, yeah, yeah. The next year I was diagnosed with myeloma. But it was we were in Hungary. It was in Budapest, and we were trying to get off the train. And anyway, it happened to be like their rush hour. So all these school kids and other people were getting on the train, and they blocked the entrance, and we couldn't get off the train. So we didn't think ahead of time we need to be right next to that door prior to our stop. And so anyway, the train took off. So we were stuck on the train. We couldn't get off. So we got off on the next stop. Fortunately, it wasn't that far. It was like another, I think, 15, 20 minutes down the line. And we got off and were able to catch a cab and get to where we needed to be in Budapest. So
Wow.
it was a little scary situation, not being from that area and so forth. But you kind of think on your feet and you just improvise and just go from there. But
Now, any language challenges as you were traveling, or
no, most people speak English. Yeah,
okay.
especially in the populated areas and where tourists travel and so forth. So yeah, that wasn't a problem. Then after Switzerland, we ended up in France. My wife loves um, Paris, so we spent a few days in Paris. And interesting enough, when I met Kathleen, we met through her daughter. Her daughter Nicole uh, was here in North Carolina and connected us after she found out that I had been divorced. And because Kathleen was living out west, she was living in Utah and was teaching school for the Department of Defense, and was actually at that time I met her was in Ramstein, Germany, and teaching at Ramstein Air Force Base.
Okay.
And so anyway, after this long distance communication and became, blossomed into a courtship, the only thing that was left to do was for me to meet her. So I flew to Germany, never been to Germany before, flew to Germany to meet her. In fact, I never had been to Europe before. And my kids, when I told my kids what I was going to do, they said, "You're going to do what? You're going to go where? And who are you going to meet?" And they thought I was crazy. So anyway, I got on a plane and we met, and a month later, she came back here to North Carolina, and we got married. So it happened pretty quick.
Wow.
Yeah. So we just knew it was the right thing to do. And
And sometimes it works. Ray Fujikawa, same type of experience. Like by his first date, he already knew inside they were going to get married.
yeah.
Kathy Thurston, third date with her husband, they decided at that point. So when it's right, you obviously feel it. Energy is good. Now I want to ask, so Kathleen is originally from North Carolina.
No, my previous wife was originally from North
Oh,
Carolina. Ruth.
okay,
Kathleen, who I'm married to, is originally from Idaho. She was raised on a farm in Idaho. So she's
okay.
an Idaho girl.
I'm always curious because my wife's from Minnesota. When you have one half of the pair is local, the other half is not. Is your wife an open-minded eater?
Yeah, I mean, she loves some of the local foods. I who was it mentioned that it was who's in South Carolina?
Mark Tsukiyama?
Mark Sukiyama. Yeah, Mark Sukiyama mentioned L&L. The L&L barbecue place is 45 minutes from me down the road. But I think my teriyaki is better. So, I just I usually don't go there to eat teriyaki or something like that. So but it's close, it's close by. It's not that far. But yeah, Kathleen likes most she's not a poi fan, but outside of that, she'll eat most things. So
Okay.
that hasn't been a problem. But you mentioned about food, but living here is different. Being that she misses, a lot of her kids are out west, so that's so she takes frequent trips out there. She really sacrificed a lot for me this past year because of my cancer, and she was my primary caregiver. So she we couldn't do any traveling. In fact, we were in isolation for almost 9 months
Wow.
um, because my immune system had depleted to the point where I was very susceptible, to anything. And so if I got sick, it would be a big problem. So anyway, she wasn't able to travel. And so, she's got all this pent up energy and demand now, to travel. So she's going to be, so obviously we got our trip to Hawaii. That's going to kick things off here in a few weeks. And then my kids are going to join us the week after the reunion. And we're going to, just kind of just tour around. Just they hadn't been to Hawaii for a while, and now my grandkids, several of them have never been, so it's going to be good to for them to see, um, home and what it was like, and I'll be able to show them a few things.
You still
And
have family in Hawaii?
my mother comes from a family of 14,
Wow.
so I
Okay.
have 50 first cousins, and so yeah, I've got a lot of family still back in Hawaii right now. Yeah,
That's wild.
yeah.
What's your wife's reaction to poke? Does she eat poke?
Uh, she's not a poke fan. I mean, she she's okay with it, but not like us, how, that's just our thing. But uh, outside of that, lomi salmon and, long rice and, kalua pig and all of that, she's good with all of that. We're gonna spend a few days on Kauai prior to going to being in Honolulu for the reunion.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So,
That's my favorite island. I love that place.
I haven't been to Kauai for some time, so and she picked it. So I've got, I don't, I don't know if I've got any family members there. I've got family on the Big Island. I got family on Maui, on Oahu, of course, but I don't think I have any on Kauai.
Mm.
Um, but I know you're from Molokai. I remember we had some other classmates from Molokai. Emiola,
Yeah.
wasn't Emiola from Davis, and her brother, and Alfred Kai, wasn't Alfred Kai from Molokai?
Yeah.
Yeah. And who else? I think those are the ones I can think of the top.
Moani Chow.
Okay.
The two Wahinuis,
Right, right. Kai
Joe
and
and Kai.
Josie. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sad about Josie. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've in fact my cousin is the um OHA rep for Molokai. So Office of Hawaiian Affairs.
Yeah.
And she's been, I think, the rep there for a couple terms. Her name is Luana Alapa. And
Right on.
so anyway, um, that's kind of brought back some memories. I didn't spend a whole lot of time on Molokai, but I've got some good memories there. I took a high adventure trip as scouts. We were older scouts. We were like 16, 17, and we went down into a valley on the on the north side of Molokai called Pelikuni.
Yeah.
And there's only two ways of getting in there, or I guess three. You can fly in on a helicopter, or you can boat in, or you hike in. And we hiked in, and that was a memorable hike. That was really, really tough.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. It was well worth it.
When I
Just
was really, really, really young, my dad and his buddies used to go by boat and go hunt back there. And he told me, or he would tell a story, and I just overhear it because I talking to his buddies or whatever. I guess there was a certain time period where they docked and they were greeted on the beach by young local guys with automatic weapons, because they were growing back there now. And it's like, okay, well, I guess no more hunting for a while. But what they just went a valley or two over and improvised. So
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, that's a pretty spot of Molokai, that's for sure. And it can remain that way because it's hard to get to. So,
Well, even now, because I have a first cousin still there that my mom was there till she passed in 20. And I thought since I'm going for the reunion, maybe I'll pop over and see him. But I hear that the one airline that services the island is just real inconsistent. They'll schedule a flight and then last minute just say, "Oh, we're not flying," or just
well,
randomly. And I talked to my cousin who lives on that island, and it puts them in a scary situation for medical reasons. You need to get off, and then suddenly you're like, delayed for 2, 3 more days because there's no flight. It's not like you can jump on one every twice, 3 times a day or whatever they're flying. So it's a little bit scary. I worried about that towards the end with my mom, but she came up here to stay with us for the remaining time we had, so that made her feel better.
that's good.
Yeah. And it was June, so she didn't have to submit to any nasty Minnesota winters. But I have learned a secret in 2024. In spring of 23, I went out and invested in a snowblower for my lawn tractor. Ever since the day I bought it, I've used it 3 times, I think. Whether, entire winter of 23 was light, nothing harrowing. This past winter was light. So I thought, okay, that's what I should have done 10 years ago. Invested lots of money to fight winter, then they're going to go away just to
There you go.
make you feel like it's
Guaranteed.
not worthwhile.
Yeah.
Oh boy. So that sounds good. So overall, you're going to be in Hawaii like three
Three
weeks or
weeks, I
longer?
think, about 3 weeks. Yeah. It's been about, I think, 4 years since we've been back there. But the last trip, we spent a little bit of time on Maui. I've got a cousin that lives in Kihei, and a couple other cousins. I think they live closer to Kahului. But but anyway, um, so this trip, um, Kathleen said we're going to go to Kauai. So, which is like I said, which will be great because it's been some time since I've been back there. It's a pretty island too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has she gotten much of an introduction to hearing pigeon?
Yeah. Yes, especially when I'm around my family, but but outside of that, not too much. And she lived in Hawaii for with her previous spouse for about a couple years, and actually did some teaching at BYU Hawaii. And
Oh, okay. Okay.
so anyway, she had been exposed, to some of the island culture, back then. So,
Mm.
but yeah, the one thing that she said attracted her to me is that I wasn't from the States, and that I was open-minded and open to travel and so forth, because that's a big deal to her, you know. So
I think
so
my wife and I had been together for a good 9, 10 months on the mainland. She's from Minnesota. Before I get a call one night from a friend of mine in Waimanalo, and instantly it breaks in, talk for about an hour. And when I got off the phone, she just was like, "What language was that?" Just stunned. And I thought, yeah, I guess I would not have spoken it to anyone up to this point. So, and she goes, "Why did you keep that from me?" I said, "I don't keep it from you. It kicks in when you need it,
yeah.
like being bilingual or something, you just know it and use it when you need it. You don't say, "Oh, I know French, but I'm not using it. I haven't used it in front of you yet," or just one day it's gonna pop up and come out. And
That reminds me when my older siblings, my oldest sister and my brother attended Kamehameha. I mean, Pigeon was a taboo thing. I mean, they were really forbidden to speak Pigeon English while on campus or to because it was all they were Kamehameha back then was very formal. Um, and in fact, my sister and I think my no, just my sister boarded. We were living in Kaneohe, but because of some issues getting her to school or something, my dad asked for special permission for her to board, and so she did. So I remember going up to seeing my sister up at the senior cottage. They called it the senior cottage way at the top above Kunia. And anyway, that was a great experience for her, and she was able to, as being a boarder, have that type of experience. So that
Yeah.
none of us that were day students ever had. So yeah.
Do you still
Yes.
have any close contact with any classmates?
Um, unfortunately not. I mean, and that's just my fault because I haven't extended myself. I'd like to get an idea of who's on the east side. I know Grayling is in Fairfax, Virginia, which is north of me. And Mark Sukiyama. Mark and I were on the tennis team together. So,
Okay.
so we need to connect, but it's been very interesting. I've watched quite a few of these and again, mahalo for taking the time and the efforts to do this. I mean, that's a labor of love that you've done for us and helping us, catch up, like you say, with a lot of our classmates. Um, because even if we're at the reunion, we won't have this type of time, to interact, with each other. And so it's been very educational and very heartening to hear what people have done with their lives and what they've accomplished,
Really
and
neat. Yeah.
it's been awesome. And Kamehameha gave us that foothold, to be what we had become, in life, and which I'm so grateful for. But
Yeah. I look
so
back and think I could have taken better advantage had I been a wiser teenager, but it's like,
you, we had my siblings and I had one teacher, had the same teacher through the years, and that's Mrs. Powers. She had been there so long that my sister that graduated in 61 had her, and my brother in 64, and my other sister, just above me. So anyway, that was kind of an interesting fact with us, our commonality that we had. And I think she was just as strict to them as she was to when I was when I had a class with her, English class. So yeah.
and that longevity speaks to the educational organization of the school too.
Mhm.
People maybe in a sense, kind of like the Mayo organization, they want to be there, they want to be effective. It's not like, okay, I got a job, clock in, clock out, go home as soon as you can. So I felt that anyway from a lot of teachers I had because there were a few that had to spend some extra time. I was challenged by math in sophomore year, I think it was, just could not grasp the concept of fractions. And so one day, Mr. Maresca said, "Why don't you drop by after school?" I dropped by, and he pulls a socket set out of his desk drawer, and I was somewhat mechanical, so oh, okay, cool, yeah. What are we gonna do? He goes, is 1/3 bigger than 2/8? And in terms of the socket set, I knew it, but on paper, when you have that question, my mind just couldn't, put it in 3D. I guess is what I need. I had somebody explain that once. He said some people learn 2D, some people learn 3D, and I'm clearly a 3D learner. So
Yeah. What they call it, either you're an auditory learner or you're, a visual type learner. Some of us are more that way. I think I'm more visual. Um, You mentioned, you asked me a question about if I've kept in touch with any classmates. I remember when I lived in Utah, I connected with Doug Panay. So
Okay.
we would spend some time with each other then. But I can't think of anyone else that where I had lived that I was near someone that that were classmates of ours. But
Well, as the reunion became more of a reality, I did some help with collecting contact data and stuff like that, and going through my annual. And I was just stunned by not only how many names I had forgotten, but people that I never interacted with that I suddenly recalled. Like I was looking up your page to see where you wrote under your name, where you were from, and that. And I saw a picture of Jack Subtrine. You remember him?
sure, yeah,
Yeah. And then just I sit and wonder. I know we've lost quite a few, so I kind of know who they are, but I probably don't know all of them. So I sit and wonder, wow, what's that person doing? And because when I talk to Mark, I haven't talked to Mark since high school, Tsukiyama. He said he hasn't seen his cousin Robin since high school.
mm,
So, and Robin was one of the ones that I did a little bit of extra digging trying to get contact information for and haven't been able to. So it's just sometimes people either have become or want to become more quiet and more hidden or whatever,
yeah.
which is fine. I mean, everybody's got their thing. So,
You know, you tend to think of people like Railing Achu or others that you have interviewed. Um, um, you put them back in time when they were in high school. They're nothing like that now. We're nothing like that. We're so different. Life has shaped us and formed us, and the experiences that we've had. Uh, that's how come we've become who we've become. And so um, being able to make that shift has been interesting. As you hear people's life stories and think, wow, he was able to do that or she was able to accomplish that. And that's what, they've gone through these experiences in life. It's been very interesting, very interesting.
yeah. And I was talking to, who was it? Kevin Garcia.
Mm.
And I'm still trying to get him to sit down with me, but he will one of these days. But it dawned on me, I was thinking, okay, let me set up this project and have it be a lead into reunion. And then I thought, why cut it off? Because I'm getting a real nice response to the project. I've had a couple, three or four, five of them call saying, may I do it? Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that'd be great. Kalani Ching was one who contacted me, and I thought, yeah, that'd be nice because I haven't seen him probably since graduation. But I think I'll run this till I'm out of classmates. If it goes August or November or, you know, whatever I'll just let it find its own life because it kind of is that way now. Just I've got text galore with all these simultaneous partial communications with people, trying to remember things and what I said and what they want to do and this and that. So I think it's going to be a neat deal, and I'm looking forward. I guess I technically haven't really seen a group of classmates since. Well, saw a few in 23 when we did that train trip thing, but really not a large collection till since before 2015 sometime. So I'm excited. Good chance to get back home. I haven't been home since 22, so that's 3 years. And I plan to spend about 2 weeks. I think I'm gonna do Oahu, definitely do Kauai. See what happens about going to Molokai for a day or whatever. Otherwise, I'll drive out to Sandy's and have my cousin drive out to the West End, and we kind of Kilauea Wilson told me I could use smoke signals that would work. Well, that'd
You
be
know,
great, man. Sounds like you got it put together. Your family's gonna get to go, and that'll be a really nice time for everyone. So,
yeah, this is actually we planned on doing this in 2020, but then COVID hit, so that kind of screwed things up. Well, it did screw things up. And so moving this off, and then I got sick, and I was, of course, really hoping that I would be better so I could make our 50th, because that's a big deal. You only get one of those in life. So I'm just grateful and for the Lord's tender mercies and allowing me to be better so I can
yeah.
be. And but when you approached me to do this, I was taken back, to be honest. I just thought, I don't know what I can really add, or if it would be interesting enough to share my life story. But um, I'm grateful that we've had an opportunity to share what we have shared, and maybe it'll do some good, for others, and
Oh, I mean,
some
I have not
encouragement.
had one turn out yet that I thought was not effective in one way or another. So,
Yes, that's for sure.
yeah.
They've been fascinating.
Well,
So
continue blessings to you, Kimo, till
thank
June
you.
at least and beyond.
I
Safe
appreciate it.
travels.
You too, Kermit. And thank you again for all that you're doing and
You betcha.
pulling our class together. Mahalo.
Aloha, my man.
Aloha. Ahuyo.